Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to your morning cup
with iBenz Academy.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kara.
And here at iBenz Academy, we are very focused on connection and creating community.
So some of the things we've been looking at the last few weeks is this dynamic of group energy. We've been talking about it a lot at iBenz Academy, and there's, in general, we'll say a pattern of light workers being lone wolves.
No way.
I know, it's a shocker. And we have zero experience with that, right? Like, we don't know anything about being lone wolves, right, Ash?
Yeah, and I think as the iBenz Academy, that's one of the pieces we've really been focused on in the classes and workshops we've created is to create an environment that puts us as students of the iBenz empowerment method.
And creating community as students, like doing it together.
Stepping out of the lone wolf
Yeah.
and being connected, doing it together.
Because we're so much more powerful when we do stuff together. And it can be anything, right? But especially when we're learning these empowerment tools and putting them into practice together. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. We're so much more effective and powerful. And it's just kind of more fun, right?
Oh, it's way more fun. Yeah. So through this, we were talking about this this perspective of looking at groups, stepping out of the lone wolf, becoming a high frequency, healthy group. And there's many of those, right? You know, for those of you who are listening, you probably heard us say multiple times, and Inelia Benz say, find your tribe. Mm-hmm. So we've created tribes through the courses, the workshops that we have. But we've also seen the, let's say, challenges, yeah? And the growing pains that come up along the way with that.
Yeah, it feels like we have a lot of resistances to connecting with others. And I guess for good reason, right? If you look back in the last however many thousands of years of the dark light paradigm, it's been like a survival tactic to be lone wolf, right? And Inelia Benz has talked a lot about this, but now, we're moving out of that, but we might still have these programs around connection as a result. So how do we move into that new energy, that healthy group dynamic of connection, and what can we do about it?
Right. Well, as we looked at this, there's so many different tribes we're a part of. Like before we started recording, we were talking about this and that, right? There's the Shaman Shack community. There's iBenz Academy. There's Fossil Beach. WalkWithMeNow. And so many more groups that we're a part of.
Subgroups and groups.
Like
Second Life and language classes on WalkWithMeNow.
Yeah, the Gaia Contract.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So through that, it's been a learning process of being in a group, stepping out of the I, me, and myself, stepping into we, us, and our. And even between you and I, right? Collaborating together, doing work together. We've found personal struggles or blocks or barriers to it. And we've had some experience, I guess, in the last several years of moving out of those and dropping the low frequency programs that keep us separated. Maybe we can look at some of that today as a case study.
Yeah, and it's so helpful to map to others and hear through other people's stories. And a big aspect of community is also like learning from each other, right? And our strength is your strength. And, we've been through a lot of experiences together just throughout the last 10 years, studying Inelia Benz's work, being members of WalkWithMeNow, and all the various experiences we've had. So we thought it'd be cool to share some of our learnings with us, the audience, because, it might be helpful. There might be some situations you're seeing right now. And we like to give practical tools or use the tools in a practical way. Since, Inelia Benz's method of empowerment is so incredible, but it's no good if you don't put it into practice. So yeah, we wanted to share some of our experiences because it hasn't always been pretty.
The first one that comes to mind is between you and I.
Oh my gosh.
We laugh because when Kara and I first met, it was at the Shaman Shack for a retreat.
Even before then.
It happened on WalkWithMeNow we met. But without going into like the whole minutia of it all, but we essentially just had like firewalls and blocks to connecting, and pretty much we're getting triggered by one another left and right,
like oil and water mixing.
Yeah, it was just like every time we'd interact, it was kind of like a huffiness afterwards. Like, I can't believe she said that.
So frustrating.
Yeah, very much ego triggers happening. But it was hilarious though, because for those who don't know, Kara and Ashley, Kara and I, people call us Cash, and we actually have the same birth date. 3 years apart, but the same day, month and day of the month. And then we have a number of things that are in common between us.
It's a long story. We'll save it for another podcast. But Ashley and I have had a long experience of being twins over lifetimes.
Yes. Hence why people call us Cash.
Yes.
And get us confused all the time. Which is funny because I don't think we're actually confusing. Like we're very different. Our styles are different. We look different. We have some similarities.
And yet.
But people get us confused all the time. I get called Kara almost every day.
Yeah, Larry and Inelia like constantly mix us up. It's hilarious.
It's not even just them, but yes, they do definitely. We make it difficult for them to keep us straight. But that's why now there's Cash.
Yep.
Make it easy.
Because we've worked through a lot of these blocks to connect.
Exactly.
And even just that name of Kara and Ashley, when you join the names together, that's like our nickname for us is Cash, right? Minimizing that separation. But it was not always that way.
No, right. And that's the whole thing is that we saw the barriers, we saw the firewalls, we observed the triggers, and through it, we had to show up responsibly, or we made the choice, rather, to show up responsibly. And it was super easy when I was like, oh, that Kara, man, she just annoys me, or she just da-da-da-da-da, whatever it is, right? And it's like, point my fingers at you and all the reasons. It could be anything, right? Like she put her shoes on wrong that day. It didn't matter. It was ridiculous. So once we stepped into being, I would say, responsible and diligent in how we were engaging and empowered in that, we stepped out of blaming and we were able to process our triggers, our firewalls, and move out of that.
Right. Able to connect.
Yeah.
One of the things Inelia has said is that when you're triggered, 100% of the time, you're making it about you, the ego.
Yeah.
Or if someone else is triggered, 100% of the time, it's not about you. So if I get triggered about something, that's my stuff. That's my programs running. Actually, if whoever did the thing that triggered me is actually irrelevant. Yeah. Because if I didn't have those programs running, it wouldn't, run. It wouldn't stick. Yep. But because there's something inside me that is low frequency or sticky or I haven't processed, it gets activated. And that's what the trigger is all about. So even just blaming this, the act of blaming is so victim aggressor. And when we even just recognize in the moment of, oh my God, my ego's like freaking out right now, or I'm really pissed off, or whatever it is, then it's that in of itself is like the first moment of taking back our power and being empowered in the sense of going, oh, right, yeah, this is my stuff. Okay, now what?
Yep. And that's that right there, right? It's being responsible and noticing and when you are becoming triggered and responding, making a choice immediately to how do we handle it? And that's where the iBenz method of empowerment and those tools really come into play. Personally, doing the fear processing exercise, and maybe instead of fear, if it's not fear, like let's say annoyance or anger, frustration, replacing fear with those words or whatever it is we're experiencing. And also doing the firewalls exercise.
Yeah, and also the ego exercise from Ascension 101. It's a really good one. Yeah.
The Ascension 101 course, the ego exercise. Yes, I think I've done that probably more than anything else of all of the tools.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had to do all of this stuff just to like literally talk to each other, let alone like collaborate together, be students together, live together, have a company together.
Well, and how do we do that? Like, how do we go from a state where we were like, there's so many ways that we were kind of connected in like ways that we didn't plan, but then we also so many ways that we were like had that kind of repelling of between one another because of the oil and water kind of dynamic. But then we became best friends, sisters, roommates, co-workers, and
Brides of Gaia.
Yeah. So like why, right? And I think that's also another part that's important in this process is what's your why? And for me with you, like I know I talked about like the trigger part, but actually like I thought you were really cool. There were a lot of amazing things that you were doing and really interesting things. And in those ways, like we did get along and we were very much similar in our approach and to being empowered and the things we wanted to do in our lives and experience and with the human collective. And then it was finding that why, that realizing, gosh, these aspects and the potential, these aspects of connection between us and the potential that we had was so worth it to be diligent and to process, to drop the low frequency stuff and move into a space where we could enjoy one another. And we do, you know, I hang out with you more than I hang out with probably anybody else now, right?
Yeah. And, you know, thinking back before we connected on Walk With Me Now, like my group of friends at that point, I mean, this is what, circa 2010, 2012, let's say. I guess Walk With Me Now started, 2012 or 13 or something. But, you know, my circle of friends were so different and they were not interested in self-empowerment or, you know, working on themselves. And, you know, that's fine. That's cool. Whatever. But now just looking at our tribes and both online and in the physical and having this shared connection, the shared community of high frequency, it's just so life transformative, you know? And I wouldn't have known it then, but it's just really cool to have people in your life where you can connect about this stuff, like being awake and aware and high frequency and sharing cool information. And it's just amazing. So yeah, going back to the why of like, you know, why connect, why process stuff, you know, in order to collaborate with others, other high frequency folks. It's like, because once you do, and once we did, everything transformed.
Oh, 100%.
And it's so much more interesting and
so much more rich and beautiful
and fun and it's just freaking awesome. So,
exactly. So worth it, right? Yeah. And I think we talked about it really candidly about the triggers we had or the firewalls, and we were very responsible, very diligent. And through that, we've just completely gone leaps and bounds. I would say that we're in our relationship, but we've been able to apply those methods and those tools to other groups. Like, for example, we're part of the Brooms of Gaia, so the brides and grooms of Gaia, and writing the Gaia Contract. And that was like, I mean, that honestly, I look back at it, I'm like, holy smokes, how did we do that? Do you want to give a synopsis what that process was like? For the group?
And before even that, if you're not familiar with it, the Gaia Contract is a power object that this group co-created together back in 2019. And it's a blueprint of what does it mean, what does it actually look like to proactively embody the new paradigm and be high frequency. And it's really about this relationship between you, the individual, the singular, and Gaia. So it's a very specific focus on that relationship. And we thought it would be important to write a contract just so that we could make the language and rules of engagement essentially super clear and actionable. So that's kind of like what the Gaia Contract is about. Definitely check it out.
One of those, gosh, if only there was like a manual.
A manual.
How do we behave in a high frequency way on this planet? Oh, well, maybe we could create that.
Yes. And now
Let's do it.
you can go read it. And so it really was a tool, a co-creative tool for the human collective, which also does include Gaia, and a way to proactively use the tools and have that experience. So that's what it's about. But it's not like we did it overnight.
No, I mean, it was 9 months where we essentially, everybody met at a workshop or retreat, excuse me.
Yeah.
And it was 9 months of meeting every Saturday and working on each clause of the contract. And like we dug deep. We were like every word defining, examining, discussing, and what's essential to be included, and is this clear, and can we get it clearer, and resonance and dissonance. So it was really in depth.
It was intense too.
And with people all over the world,
Yeah.
different time zones.
Culture, language. Yeah, and the group that co-created this, we all got together at a retreat, the Shaman Shack, and it was 2019, wasn't it? 2018, 2019?
So.
Something around there. And one of the things we were looking at that retreat was what does a healthy group look like? What does that even mean? That idea was so foreign at the time. Like, this was before Inelia had shared anything about the lone wolf, or, well, maybe not anything. But
Before we ever heard it.
Before we ever heard
She
it.
probably said it, but we never heard it.
That's true. That does happen. If you're new to Inelia's work, she has to repeat stuff a lot because it doesn't always stick.
Yeah.
So we went into depth about exploring, like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And then we decided as a group, okay, maybe we can like write this down, and co-create something as a group to explore those energies of being a high frequency group. But yeah, it took some work,
Yeah. And I mean, these are all people who have lives. They have jobs. They have families. They have other interests and hobbies and all these things, but we committed.
Yeah.
We really stayed diligent. Through that, I think that was a huge learning experience to step into. And it was an interesting progression to see like the firewalls or the blocks that might come into play when connecting as a high frequency group, but how we responded together. And then also, even once that project was complete, it's like it went through its natural course, right? It's like we came together for this project. There was that energy, that motivation, that commitment. And then when we completed the project, the group evolved and transformed, and we actually expanded and more people joined, right? We expanded on WalkWithMeNow, and more people joined the Guild of Gaia. And then now we even our connection is very fluid. We're still connected. We still get together, but in much more fluid way because we don't have quite the same project we're working on.
Yeah, we found that it really helps to have a clear why to creating a group dynamic. And our why for this group was very specific of we want to create this contract. So it was a very clear project, and we were engaged, we were committed, and it helped keep the focus in a lot of ways of like, just what are we talking about today and how are we working through this? Very practical things, right? But as you said, Ash, when things were complete, when the project was complete, the nature of our group shifted. Some folks were like, yeah, I'm done. It's cool. I'm going to go do other things. Nope, I'm not interested in doing Gaia contract updates. It's like, okay, yep, that's cool. Others were like, yeah, I'm interested. I want to keep doing this. And so it's important to recognize, I feel that, we're all adults, especially as we are figuring out how to gel as a group or maybe completing a project as a group, recognizing that we all have free will and we're here because we're inspired. It's not out of like obligation.
Yes.
It's about like a shared commitment. And you can always change your mind, right? And it's like, if you don't want to participate, then don't. No one's going to force you. That's not the new paradigm, right? We're all here out of mutual inspiration and shared connection and resonance and high frequency. And it's like, if that doesn't resonate, then that's fine. You can go do something else and it's cool. No hard feelings, right?
And I think that to add to that, that energy of being proactive, right? That was key as well, because people showed up and took lead on different aspects of the project at different times. Sometimes that the lead was kind of revolving between different people, or depending on superpowers and skill sets. And I know even for us, when we created iBenz Academy, that was a learning dynamic as well, where shifting that perspective, where iBenz method was created by Inelia Benz, the tools of empowerment were created by Inelia Benz, the body of work of iBenz Academy is based on these iBenz method tools. And coming into that as founders, it was very much a dynamic of shifting out of the, okay, so Inelia, what do we do? How do we do this?
Tell us what to do.
Yeah. Into that proactive, okay, so this is what we need to do. This is what I see, or this is what I'm doing, or not even have a conversation. Let's just start doing, right? And learning in that way of being proactive.
Yeah, it's such an important energy of that, even just that state of being in empowerment. It's like when you're empowered, like we have power, right? And what do we do with that chi? And why? And this whole thing about what Ina has shared for years is the new paradigm. No one's going to bring it to you, right? No one's going to save you. It's not a location. It's something that we actively create, that we co-create. And this is why it's so important to work with others, because it's not just on you, an individual, a singular, to figure it all out, right? It's we create the new paradigm. And that's why finding our tribes, the high frequency connections, and creating inspirational projects, new structures, that's something we do together. We're not in isolation. And we can't create in a passive way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It's a proactive energy.
Yeah. And it's been interesting as we've tapped into those energies as a collective. And when I say that, meaning it's not just iBenz Academy tapping into that. I know Inelia's work has really focused on that healthy group and that structure and the dynamics of it. And on WalkWithMeNow, even looking at the groups that have formed within WalkWithMeNow and the proactivity, it's incredible. One thing I mentioned earlier today when Kara and I were talking about this was I'm a part of so many different projects right now. Honestly, I don't even think I could tell you like how many, because there's just so many. I have no idea. But I know like I'm a part of them, and thank goodness for Telegram. It's just been so cool and interesting and fun to be a part of these groups. And at the same time, as an individual, a part of a group, not only being aware of what's the group's why, but my why in the process has been really helpful, because sometimes my why isn't a strong enough why to continue. Right. Or sometimes my why is a why that I can share and inspires others to participate. So it's not being there just to be there and just to, fear of missing out, let's say. Or
FOMO.
Yeah. It's being there and being proactive, being engaged. And how am I contributing to our group? How am I contributing to this project? How am I contributing to our community?
Right. What strengths can we give to our group? Right? Yeah. Because our strengths are our strength and your strengths are our strength. And for me personally, I've had to overcome a lot of resistances to connecting, whether it's between you and I or even just other groups and participation. And honestly, like I'm an introvert, It's not exactly my immediate natural state to just be social and extroverted and all these things. It's like a learned thing in a lot of ways, but it also helps when I recognize just like who I am and being okay with that, and also seeing like where are the resistances and firewalls and processing those. Because a lot of the resistances that have come up, whether it's was working on the Gaia contract or forming groups in WalkWithMeNow or forming parts of IBA, like there's an important step that I think, and this is true of many programs, but if we feel a trigger or a resistance, we get curious about it and go, oh, why is that there? Why am I super resistant to like joining this call on a Saturday, or, joining this, group on Telegram, and sometimes it's because there's something really, really cool on the other side. And the low frequency programs I have running are putting those in place to stop me, to keep a disempowered or limitation in place. And then seeing that, it's like, oh, okay, that's one thing. And then other times it's just like, I'm not that interested, honestly. I'd rather put my focus somewhere else,
Yeah.
And that's okay. So if a resistance comes up, it might not always be one thing or the same thing for every group. Like one resistance for me was, just my why wasn't strong enough. I didn't really want to be proactive because the project wasn't interesting enough. Whereas others, like the Gaia contract, it was so interesting and so cool that I think like it was a human collective firewall of like, whoa, this is some big work that we're doing, in the sense of co-creating something new that could have a huge impact on the planet. And so, the energies can shift and change, and using a lot of the tools can help you identify like, what is it, and work through it or drop it, or, keep it if you want. So
at least then you got choices.
Exactly. Always have a choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Conscious choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conscious choice.
Yep. One thing I think I've seen across the board in all the groups we've been a part of, and even in our relationship, and so all the dynamics of stepping out of the lone wolf and moving into connection, I would say personally, as a workaholic, and I know you are too, we're getting outed if anybody didn't guess, we're workaholics. But as a workaholic, my approach to the groups and connection is been predominantly focused on work. And so it's been a learning process too, to not just make it work, and to also enjoy people and have fun. I remember when we started doing that with the Guild of Gaia, with the brooms, started having more fun connection calls as well. And for me personally, it was very frustrating because it's like, we have all this work to do and we're not doing it, and people just want to hang out and draw cards, like ego, right? Ego. And when I started stepping into embracing that experience and going for the connection, and how are we connecting? And this is another opportunity to connect in a high frequency way. It's so enjoyable and so enriching. And for somebody who's a workaholic, it's actually also really nice. It's like a breath of fresh air to have that different experience without an agenda, without a timetable that we had to stick to, without like being productive, quote unquote, right? So it was really nice. And I think that also, like balancing the work and balancing that fun and connection, really created a great opportunity for us to continue to move forward and not get like burnt out or distracted. Totally.
Yeah, it feels like there's no one size fits all approach to like, how does a group function in a healthy way? Because even with when we were creating the Gaia contract, there was an evolution, and the group created roles as the group was evolving. So when we were having a lot of proactive work meetings, we realized, oh, wow, we need to like document what we're saying. So someone stepped up to take notes, and another person put together the recordings, because sometimes we'd have to revisit or folks couldn't make it. And it did become structured in a lot of ways, but then we also felt like actually it's really important to like connect and see how life is going and draw cards and get insights from Gaia in a different way. And so the group evolved to have, you know, those superpowers be utilized too. And it shifted. So didn't we have like one Saturday was a work call, the next Saturday was a entourage call, right?
Exactly.
And things like that. And it's, you know, it evolved, and allowing that evolution to happen it feels important.
Right.
Like allow that flexibility, allow the group to express what it needs to express and to evolve and support and be supported in the ways that it needs at that time.
Yep.
And it might not always be the same forever. And that's okay too, right?
And to your point earlier, you know, a group is made up of individuals, and each individual expresses differently, and we're all adults. So coming into that perspective where there's no expectations on people to have to participate in a particular way, right? Yes, we want to be proactive. Yes, we're diligent and being responsible and empowered, and we have those kind of levels of engagement. But regarding that, not everybody needs to facilitate the call, or not everybody needs to take notes, and not everybody is going to want to draw cards and kind of take a look at things from a mystical perspective, right? So there's got to be room that, to your point, there's not one size that fits all.
Yeah, and it feels important too as individuals to be responsible and own our stuff as well. So for example, during the Gaia Contract, especially the first few months, I would write it for the group. So there would be conversations happening of like, okay, let's add this, let's write this sentence, let's do this. And so actively typing, very focused work. And it was like that every week for a couple months. And then at some point, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I just want to like sit back and talk. I don't want to have to type everything. And, you know, that's kind of like a victim energy, right? And so I looked at that, I scanned it, and I was like, okay, process that. So I did. And then the next week or something, I was like, hey, everyone, so I need help. I can't just do this. It feels like I'm doing this all on my own. Can we do something different? And then immediately the group was like, oh, yeah, I can do it this week. Or yeah, I can do it next week. And yeah, I've been actually wanting to, but you seemed like you were really enjoying it. And I didn't want to like interrupt your flow, you know? So there were a lot of assumptions and, you know, things that I had assumed about others that just weren't true. But it was important to like not only own my stuff, but also to express like when we needed to change it up. And then actually after that happened, I felt like the energies totally shifted and became much more collaborative and dynamic and supportive and co-creative. But it's that responsibility, right, of just even taking a moment to recognize in myself, oh, am I martyring myself right now? Okay, I'm going to look at that, process it. But it's not like I threw that on anyone else to fix for me, right? And that's an important part of being responsible in a group, is being responsible for ourselves.
Yeah. That reminds me of the emergency lecture series. In lecture 3, Inelia talks about communication and with family, and especially right now, given the dynamics of the energies of what's happening on the planet and in the middle of the split. And she said that arguments happen due to a breakdown in communication. And that's, you know, if we're not communicating where we are with things or how we see things, or maybe we're communicating it, but in a very aggressive or passive aggressive or just poor way. It's a really interesting thing to start taking a look at when you're in a group of how we're communicating, or how are others perceiving our communications, and just being proactive in that as well. Highly recommend that lecture. The whole series, but that lecture in particular, if that's something you're finding that maybe people are reacting in ways that are negative to what you're sharing, or maybe you're reacting negative to things that people are sharing. It's just enlightening to understand the different types of communication around physical body and verbal communication, energetic communication, mental communication, egoic communication. And then again, having the tools to be able to approach it in a way that's healthy and in a high frequency empowered way. So as we talked about this, I think we covered a lot of different dynamics about the groups and connection and high frequency. And one other thing that we have coming up too for one of our many tribes is here at the Shaman Shack community in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State in the United States. Every Sunday we meet and gather for a community meal. And the meal is shared. Everybody brings something to contribute in some way, and very just dynamic and fluid in participation. But we've recently also started sitting in pure heart together. So it's our pure heart expression. So you may have seen this in our newsletter or on Telegram as we've shared about it and explored what it means to be pure of heart. And you can look at both of those places to learn more. But essentially we come together for 1 hour. And that's the main objective. Everybody expresses it in a different way, but we're in silence. And we've invited the iBenz Academy community and tribe to join us. So at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Sundays every week, you are invited to join us. So in your home, maybe you create a nice space, comfortable space, sitting in the expression of your pure heart essence. And join in, tap into our community as we do this as well together.
It's a great way to be proactive and connecting with your global tribe in high frequency. And it just feels really good.
It does.
It's super cool. So we'll see you there.
Yeah. All right. And one just note here first, we're really excited. Last weekend, we started recording again.
Woohoo!
So we had Inelia in the recording studio, and we've created one more lecture to add to the emergency lecture series. So it's a special edition lecture series now.
It's a year and a half later, right? So we thought it's a great time to not only reflect on the tools and practical steps that Inelia shared in the emergency lecture series, but also what's different and what's the same. So lecture 6, it's all about the jab.
It's all about the jab. That's what it's called. Yeah, and it's also looking at like what's to come, right? What do we do now? So we're really excited because we are going to be releasing that lecture soon. Here at iBenz Academy, we are also all about course completion.
Yep. And community.
and community and connection. And so in that, we are working on creating a way for us to do the emergency lecture series together, and including some Q&A sessions with Inelia. So we're super excited for that. Again, more to come. Stay tuned. You can sign up for our newsletter at ibenzacademy.com, or you can also follow our Telegram at iBenz Academy, and we'll keep you all posted on that as it becomes available.
It's going to be awesome.
It is.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us for this morning cup. Coffee, water, juice, tea, all the things that we have. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.